room, y'all. I like have dreams about this experience days prior to it. This is a lot of people. I'm thrilled to be back. I'm really excited to work on this show. Those of us who've collaborated before know that family theater is really the thing that I love the most. I love it. I think it's an enormous privilege and a huge responsibility, and it's just something that I'm honored to get to be a part of, and I'm really excited to do this show because it's its own brand of family entertainment. And when Rick first came to me and said, you know, we're thinking about doing Shrek, and I got the script and I read it, and I was like, let's just make sure that everybody reads it, like really reads it. 100% reads every page of it, because it's got a whole different breed of humor than your normal, like, gentle children's show. This really is family theater. This is family theater more than I would say this is just for children, and which is great. This is the kind of show where if you don't have kids, you don't feel weird about going to this play. Because it's really funny. And when the series of films came out in the early 2000s, we had just come out of a period of, like, political correctness to the point where we couldn't really address each other without worrying that we were saying something wrong, and Shrek just kind of blew that apart and was like, we are an equal opportunity offender. Like, nothing is precious, no one is exempt, we're gonna call it like we see it. We are a society of creatures where we just use adjectives to say what we think about each other. The big bad wolf and the wicked witch and the ugly duckling. And it wasn't all gentle and precious, and we didn't care about, you know, being a little blue with a family movie. And it was DreamWorks was a really fresh voice for kind of family movies, and it opened the door for a whole new genre of way cooler kind of family entertainment. And then Shrek the Musical came along years later as part of, you know, the take a movie and put it on stage movement of musicals that we still find ourselves in. And it's great how well it translates to the stage. And for us, it was trying to find a way to honor the things about Shrek the movie that you need to see visually, and then find a new way to do it so that we didn't feel so everything didn't have to be so literal. Because I think that's where challenges happen when you're trying to take a cinematic experience and make it a theatrical experience. It becomes really prohibitive. And this feels very liberating because we're keeping iconic things, but then also taking liberties with our physical environment, which I think is really cool. What I love about what this story says to us as a society, it's kind of twofold. There's the global view of a society that is ruled by somebody who only wants their own fear-based dogma to be the representing voice. We have no idea how that feels as a society. And then there's, you know, the society of, it's a very diverse society. And I feel like it couldn't happen at a better time for us socially, because we're on the brink of redefining what we think of as traditional America and traditional families. Like, we're so close. It's inches away. And I love that we're, in this play, saying that our view has to be diverse. You know, your government's views have to represent the views of the majority of your citizens. It has to represent your society. And I think that in a couple of the songs, we say things like, what makes us different makes us strong. And that's an incredibly great message to put out to families, I think. And also, we are different and united. You are us and we are you. This is our story. It's just a very inclusive message coming from a really repressed society where Farquaad, due to his own pain and neglect, being abandoned and also emotionally shunned by his angry dwarf workaholic father. I'm not saying that he doesn't have reasons, but he's decided that and also because he has such self-image issues, he's going to make the community that he lives in perfect, and no one with any flaws is going to be allowed to live there. Well, the whole community is really made up of a bunch of people that celebrate their flaws. I mean, wooden boys and ugly ducks, and and people that have been labeled incorrectly. And he's like, I'm not a big bad wolf. I just really like to wear women's clothing. It's just, Pinocchio's another whole thing. I can't even really get and so there's the big global view of what this story does, and then there's also the individual view or the personal view for this story, where our protagonist is actually somebody who is perceived as unlikable and standoffish and rejecting society and seems to not want our love. So we have a new hero and a new heroine. I mean, Fiona seems on the surface to be very much like what we expect from a princess, but we all know that she's hiding a terrible secret, that at night she becomes an ogre, and she thinks that it's the thing that she feels the worst about, and she doesn't believe that anyone would ever love her. It's that old, if they really knew me, they wouldn't care about me. And Shrek also has a secret too, where he seems to be this gruff, monster, because that's what the perception of ogres is, and really he's quite sensitive, and ogres have layers like onions, and he's really sensitive, and he wants somebody to bust through the wall that he's created to keep himself safe. Because when your parents sit you down when you're 7 years old and say, you're ugly and life's going to be hard for you, so the best thing you can do is find a shack away from everybody and stay out of the way. That is scarring. that can instill a really significant belief system about yourself. But it's interesting to me when I was thinking about it is how cavalier we are as adults with children and their self-esteem issues sometimes, because it's so easy to say, don't worry about what other people think about you. And yet, we have shows on television right now like Pretty Wicked Moms. So clearly our self-image issues don't disappear as we grow up. The only difference is that we have financial resources to buy ourselves self-esteem and change things about ourselves. So it's really easy to say to your kid, don't worry, they didn't really mean it. It's like, well, yeah, they probably did, because kids can be really cruel to one another. And it's really hard to be self-secure when you're still self-actualizing. How can you really be your most authentic self when you're trying to figure out who that person is? So it's really, I will watch myself the next time I say to my son, oh, don't worry about what they think. That isn't important. Well, it all impacts you, and it takes a really secure person to not let other people's opinions about you affect you. But what I love about this show is that by uniting everybody, it's like the self-esteem it's a net of self-esteem. And Donkey is kind of the one that points that out to everybody. It's like, we all go through bad things, but if we go through them together, we are an army. We are united, and we can face it together. If you have friends, if you have allies, and if we all decide that we're going to be one instead of a bunch of individuals, raging against the machine. So that's what I love. That's what I love about Shrek. And it seems very simple on paper, but when you really get into it, it has a lot of really great things to say. Plus, there's belching and farting, which is hilarious. And I remember when I saw the tour, I thought, oh, we're going there. Oh my God, this is so funny. And I just appreciated how funny it was. And it's got great moments for the adults. But it isn't something that I think we need to worry about our kids. It introduces sarcasm and irony in a children's show, which is something that we kind of tend to avoid, and I think it's really great. I mean, ring them up. It's good. It's a really interesting way to tell the story. It's very funny. It's darkly funny, and I think it's going to be a blast. I think people are really, really going to have a good time. Kind of an unexpected good time. So.